Even during, that's why it is called plan. Even during the plan, all these things are supposed to be taken into cognizance. That okay, by 2025, the population of Nigeria population is supposed to increase to millions. And so whatsoever plan that is made, it should be done in such a way that it will capture this population growth. Now, according to World Bank, that in 2024, those people that are living in extreme poverty in the world was about 692 million, which is three-quarter. And three-quarter of these people live in sub-Saharan Africa. So sub-Saharan Africa is the house of three-quarter poor people in the world. Then in Nigeria, it was estimated as 40.7%, which is about 104 million Nigerians in 2024, according to World Bank. But that since 2018, the share of Nigerians living below the national poverty line is estimated to have risen sharply from this to this. It said, added that 129 million are now living in poverty. You see, these are some of the informations that World Bank do give in relation to poverty in Nigeria. Now, while according to NBS 2022, 42% of Nigerians, 72% are poor. When we look at it from the multidimensional perspective, 72% are poor, while 42% of people are poor compared to 42% of people in urban areas. Approximately 70% of Nigerians live in rural areas. 72% of Nigerians live in 80%, 70% live in rural areas, and with 80% of the people from there. The rural people are always exposed and have the tendency of falling into the poverty trap. It's easy for them to do that because they don't have other alternatives. And so that is why, in terms of risk, they are the most vulnerable when it comes to any risks, attendant risks that might come up due to any situation. Now, in the 65% of poor people, they said that according to NBS, that 86 million are from the north, which Kaduna is inclusive. Abi? Yes, Kaduna is inclusive. So, while 35% nearly these live in the south, only 35% in the south. This, I can attest to this. For those of you that are from the southeast or south-south, specifically, that is the area I'm familiar with more than the southwest. In those communities, no matter how poor a person is, hardly will he cook without meat in his soup. I don't know if I'm making sense here. When you go to the South Bar, hardly can somebody cook without meat in his soup. So every time we go to their house, there's never been a day that we went to their house and there's no meat in their soup. And the floor of their house, there's no cement, nothing, just clay, the floor. For those of you that are familiar, this is with the issue of survey, household survey and the rest. This is one of the criteria that is used. The type of floor that and the roofing, all these things are some of the criteria. So the floor they are using is just clay, no cement, nothing. And yet the kind of soup they eat, there's always meat. So that is to tell you that the poor in the north, the number of poor in the north is truly higher than the one in the south. But here in the north, before you eat meat, sometimes once in a month. Even for some of us that claim to be the middle income earners, we find it very difficult to eat meat in our houses too. Let alone those that are below us. So, about 1 in every 5 poor people in sub-Saharan Africa live in Nigeria. That's another case again. So out of every 5 people that are poor in sub-Saharan Africa, 1 is from Nigeria. How many countries do we have in sub-Saharan Africa? We have about 46, 46, 47, 48, right? So out of these countries, Nigeria will take 1 part. The other remaining countries will share the remaining 4 parts. So that will tell you how severe it is. You know, it's a serious issue, of which Kaduna is one of the states in Nigeria. So this is the Kaduna State poverty profile. I might, but this is the information I get from various this thing. NBS 2022 said that Kaduna people are poor, 43.5. NBS 2022, while child poverty stood at 30.1, and that 1/3 of the population experience deprivations in at least 3 of the dimensions of survival and development, which is what? 1/3 of the population are multidimensionally poor, according to NBS 2022, and with the prevalence in the rural areas. You know, rural people are more poor than the urban people. But however, according to Global Data Lab, it also said that 82% of households in Kaduna State, Nigeria, were considered poor. That was in 2021. So comparing the data of this global lab and that of the NBS, is it an improvement, or which is in 2021? According to global data, they said around 82%. So what can we say about this? What can we say about it? These are sources. These are data. 2022, right? Yes. Then it means there's a significant, yes. For that is giving the data for which year? For 2023. Okay, and I tried to search that. I couldn't find. Maybe if I had asked, yes, maybe if I had asked, maybe I would have been given. So, but so far, this is what I was able to. This is what I was able to assess. So, but I believe that data have shown improvement, significant improvement, right? Yes, that's a good one. In 2023, according to the governor himself on channels, he said that 86% of rural dwellers in Kaduna live below poverty line. This is the governor that said it, because I even saw the YouTube. It was when I was searching that I just saw the YouTube when he was making this present. Hey, that's why I said on channels. Yes, that's why I said on channels. And I believe the governor cannot just come to the media and begin to talk like this. He must have gotten information from you people. True of us. Yes. So so this is what he said. So what he's saying is that, and I believe the statement he was making, he was trying to show a kind of need on why government policy should be focused on the rural areas, right? Looking at the fact that 86% of the people who are poor live in the rural areas. In other words, he's trying to change the direction of his policies to focus on the rural area. Yes, which is very, very good, because in the rural area we have the most poor and the most vulnerable. So what are the main causes of this poverty? One of it is economic causes. When we have limited job growth, when there is high cost of living, and lack of government support. So these are some of the areas that, in our review, we need to be looking at some of these things so that whatsoever recommendation we are making, whatsoever review that we are making, it should be geared towards job creation, reducing cost of living, then ensuring government support, which comes through this social protection policy, where the government invests its funds in order to enhance the living standard. Then we have social causes, which is social barriers, discrimination, and exclusion. These are also some of the causes of poverty, which is social causes. Then we have environmental causes, war, climate change, and poor infrastructure. This environmental cause is very, very important and key as far as this workshop is concerned, because I was able to go through the communique of the civil societies, the meeting that was held, by the civil society organizations and that of the youth. One of the key recommendations they gave was the issue of what? Climate change. That as we review the social protection policy, the issue of climate change is key because of the attendant risk that is there. You discover that the rural people that will be emphasizing that they are the most poor, what they depend on is what? Is agriculture. So imagine a poor person that has planted his farm. He has exhausted all the little resources he has to plant crops. All of a sudden, flood sets in, and the whole of the farm was washed out. What will happen to that person? So it's going to be, it is catastrophic. It is catastrophic. So, and that is why there must be policy on ground that will mitigate the effects of that climate change. So it is very, very important that as we review this document, we take cognizance of it. Then we also have political causes of poverty. Most of the policies that are designed, the poor are not incorporated, are not taken into cognizance. Because it is discovered that those people designing the policy, specifically either at the national level or at where, the poor people are not there. The poor people are not there. So let alone allowing them to voice. And so also the vulnerables. The vulnerable are also not mostly there. I'm happy seeing one of the PW, this representative here, who will be able to voice out, their own concerns about the social protection policy, which I believe will make a serious contribution to that, so that he will make sure the interests of the PWDs are captured in. So because of these political reasons, you discover that the poor do not participate in taking decisions. They don't participate, So it is very, very important that effects of poverty. Once there's poverty, there will always be hunger and malnutrition. And there's a saying that a hungry man is what? Is an angry man. Then, and if someone is an angry man, what do you think will follow again? So many things, right? Crisis, all kinds of social crimes, and all sorts. Name them. Then, limited access to education and other basic services. If someone is poor, you will not have access to education and basic healthcare services because you don't have the resources to access them. Because even though In documents, in policy, it is clearly stated that education is free, especially at the primary school up to UBE level. If there's anybody from the Ministry of Education, I think almost all the states have declared that from primary to up to senior secondary school is free. Right. But is it truly free? That is the question. Is it truly free? Because the issue is this. I have seen where a school sends back pupils from school that because they have not paid PTA levy.
No, that one Kaduna said, unless the parent didn't come forward to the Ministry of Appropriate, we know all forms of collections is banned.
Right.
All forms of collections. Whether
So,
PTA, in fact, any other form of collection is banned.
So this is a very good move. This is a very good move. I remember even in Gombe State, I was discussing with one of the staff of the ministry. He was telling us that there was a time they suspended one of the headmasters because he sent back the people because he did not pay PTA. That headmaster was suspended. So I believe, if the head of these primary schools and secondary schools are aware that the government is truly giving education free, so there will be no reason why they will send back pupils when they do not pay PTA. And apart from that, they also pay, there is this fee they call examination fees. You know what normally happens with most of these head of schools, either primary school or secondary school? Anybody that becomes the head, either headmaster or principal, they see it as an opportunity for them to enrich themselves. So they will be creating all means of what? Of getting money, from pupils. That is what they do. And that is why, to some extent, some of the principals, they bribe their way to, some of my students, some of them are principals, some of them are headmasters, some of them are teachers. In fact, before coming to the university, I sat for 7-8 years teaching in secondary school before moving to the university. So I have all these first-hand information. So I'll just engage you. Before you know what's happening, I'll just get the information I want. So this is what is happening. So if truly education is free, then it means the poor can have access to it. So because of this little fees, exams fee, PTA fee, excursion fee, this fee, some of the people will boycott schooling. If you ask them why, they ask us to pay PTA, and my father doesn't have the money. So if we want to make education free and accessible to everyone, then we have to truly make it free. Then there is this issue of poor health, low levels of education or skills. All these are effects of poverty, and so many others. Issue of political instability, issue of social crimes, issue of all this kidnapping that we are seeing, all these Boko Haram that we are seeing, all these bandits in the northwest that you people are experiencing here, the lack hours, all these things, some of them are because of what? Poverty. I heard one of the kidnappers being interviewed that when you kidnapped the person, how much was paid for ransom? He said 5 million. They collected 5 million. Then the police asked him, what is your own share? That he was given 50,000. So just imagine. He was given 50,000 out of the 5 million. Taking that risk to kidnap somebody. And after being paid 5 million ransom, they are giving you 50,000. And you are happy. It's because he is poor. And he knows what that 50,000 can do for him. So these are some of the effects of this poverty. And so, because of these issues that we've raised above, there is a need For what? For social protection. If at all we want to have citizens that are law abiding and that are living in affluence and that contributes to the growth and development of the economy, then definitely social protection is key. In sub-Saharan Africa, so many countries have done that. They have designed and implemented this social protection policy in order to address poverty and inequality within their populations. These are some of the countries that have implemented that. So, but when I was trying to search through the, literatures and this, I discovered that only few of these countries have succeeded in the implementation of this social protection policy. When I say succeeded, it has achieved the desired objective, which is poverty reduction. Because when you try to make comparison of their poverty rates before and after, you discover that there's a significant improvement in that. This is the multidimensional impact of social protection policy. The first one is poverty reduction. The second one is human capital development. Because once there is human capital development, it means you have a lot of opportunities as an individual. If you are educated, you are healthy, definitely you always look for a way, you always look for a legitimate, of earning a means of livelihood, right? So human capital is very important. As we can see, some of the components of the human development, human capital development. Then there will be enhanced livelihoods. There will be also risk management. There will be economic resilience, social cohesion, build trust in government. Because if people are not poor, all these rants that people are making, either on social media or on where, is simply because people are poor. It's because people are poor. All this ranting. But if everyone is to be living well, to be living comfortable, anytime you go out, you can have something to do to earn income. Anytime you go out, you can have something to do to gain income. Because the truth is that the government have to make a very conducive environment, for you to take part in the supply chain. And if you do not take part in the supply chain, there is no way you can earn income. So the government have to make the environment very conducive, for production to thrive. Production thrives, then the participants in the supply chain, last 10 people, you discover that 7 to 8 people will tell you that, no, we don't have confidence in this government. Oh. We don't have confidence in this government. Madam Becky, you're coming around, my time, go. So one of it is economic reform. Then how do you facilitate this economic reform? These are some of it that was adopted by some of these countries. So from the foregoing discussions, should Nigeria invest more resources in social protection? Why? What factors are preventing more investment in social protection policy? This is the key takeaways. So social protection's main impacts are to effectively reduce poverty, inequality, and then it is also a key tool for strengthening SDGs 2 to 9 because it generates a wide range of developmental impacts in terms of human capital development, household well-being, and social risk management. Then lastly, developmental impacts promote poor and inclusive economic growth, which is reinforced by social protection's impact on economic resilience, social cohesion, and other mechanisms to promote inclusive economic growth. Do we need social protection policy in Kaduna State? Do we need it?
Yes.
Then. So if we need it, then this is the right time for us to review it and see how we can come up with it. Now, I think the next item is still me, right? Yeah. So let me just continue. Yes. Now, I want us to briefly look at why do we review this social protection policy? Why do we need to review it? Some speakers have given reasons why it needs to be reviewed, and I align with them. All the reasons they gave are genuine and are okay. That the Kaduna State social protection policy needs to be reviewed. Now, my little experience with what we used to do in respect to this in Gombe State, I don't know whether you people used to do it. Do you normally review quarterly performance? Do you normally have quarterly performance for the social protection policy? They review almost every 3 months, right? You do. So how is the performance from there? So what is the performance? Eh? I mean, so the issue of performance is very, very key. Now in Gombe State, I champion the review quarterly. We bring in together the representatives of the MDAs. In fact, we have a platform of social protection policy desk officers where we quarterly review the performance of each MDA, because in the cost and implementation plan, it is clearly stated there that okay, by the end of so year, it is expected that so amount will be spent in the so MDA. In order to achieve this, to see that so number of people, you know, are provided with health services, so number of people are given free education. All these things are there. So quarterly, we bring together all the desk officers, social protection policy desk officers of the MDS to review. And to our greatest dismay, anytime we review, you discover that normally only 2 or 3 MDAs will always have something to say. But since when we started the review, hardly will you have all the MDAs have submissions. So meaning there was no any activity. Because if you've not done any activity, what are you going to report? You know? so once we see them keep mute, we know there was no any activity. So the story is the same. The story is the same, you know. Though sometimes is the kind of failure on the part of the desk officers, you know, because of inconsistency. At a point in time, I had to come out and tell our ministry, the Ministry for Economic Planning, I had to tell them that being the head office, or I can say being the secretariat for the social protection policy, that issue of inconsistency, you know, is one of the challenge. You know, you discover that today this one is here, tomorrow he's moved to another place, tomorrow, you know. So you discover that there's always the inconsistency. The person that will be coming in new will not have an idea of what is happening there. You know, he doesn't know anything. And when he's coming, the person going did not brief him that this is what I'm doing in this office and update him, you know, so that he can pick up from there. And I came to realize that it's because of the kind of, how will I put it? Is a kind of either jealousy or rivalry. Because if one is taken from one place, sometimes he's not happy being transferred out of that place. And sometimes the person that is transferred to that place is for a particular purpose or was motivated by something else. So both of them will not be happy. So there's always an issue of inconsistency. So I said that we should maintain, let's maintain at least one person per MDA that will be keeping track of all social protection policy activities, so that whenever we ask for it, it will be handy for us to have it. And I believe Kaduna State, who are our elder brothers, because we are copying from you people, so we also do that. Now, why do we review? We want to review to evaluate the policy impacts, which I've just talked about it, to see whether it has succeeded in reducing the poverty, whether it has reduced vulnerability, whether it has mitigated some risk, that and also whether there was improved livelihoods in Kaduna State. The answer is best known to you, right? You all have your answers. Now, also, the another reason is for us to identify implementation challenges. What are those challenges that Kaduna State is facing in the implementation of this social protection policy? So they can be able to profile solution and see how the government can come about it. Government, anytime you are advising government, you are suggesting to government to do something, you have to be very, very technical. You have to be very, very intelligent, or else your presentation will just misfire. Always try to let them know the importance. Now, like this issue of poverty, you can tell them that if this thing is not done, one day we'll wake up and we'll see all these children blocking road. And it's true. It will get to that point that when people are poor, when people do not have what to eat for like 1-2 days, the next thing is that they will become wild. They'll become wild. And before you know what's happening, they will start blocking roads. And their target will always be government. Their target will always be government, institutions, buildings, and whatsoever. And that was why when you look at the time of, during this time of, what do you call it, this protest, this hunger protest and the rest, where do people normally go to? Warehouses? People go to warehouses, go to stores, vandalize warehouse, and cut away with food items because they're hungry. So these are some of the implications of poverty that we need to address. Then we also need to assess inclusivity. Are the people concerned inclusive? Are they included in the policy designed on implementation? Are they included? Were they contacted? Now, one thing that used to disturb me is the attitude. I am an elected member, and there are people I'm representing. I cannot go and contact them and ask them, what is your need? You discover that in some of the places, their need is school, while others is water, others hospital. So those people whose need is water, and you went and built school for them, why they don't have students, people that will attend the school, their problem is water, and you went and built school. What do you think will happen? Before you know what is happening, all this Baba Bola, they will start removing the roof. The classes will just be left empty, no students, while the rural people are suffering because there is no water. And the rural people, they will not even concern. They will not even bother. In fact, let them remove everything. In fact, they are the ones that will even be removing it and be selling it to Babambola. So that is why it is this issue of inclusivity is very, very important. You ask the people what is their need. What is their need so that you prioritize it. Because maybe of your political destiny, you know that if you go and build a school there, you have your own percentage of your constituency project, do substandard work. Then at the end of the day, you have your this. Then you just go ahead and do that. Then for transparency and accountability, so as to make sure that the policy is implemented to the latter and as contained, you see, and in line with global best practices. How is it done in other countries that have succeeded? You know, one thing I always say is that, and as said by one of the development economics, Gashem, then from there we'll find a way of improving on it. So it is very, very important. Now, lastly, to adapt to emerging global issues, which is very, very relevant and responsive, very, very important, such as economic stability. Economic stability, you know, there are price increases in global commodity prices, you know, crude oil prices have risen, you know, that has directly or indirectly affected our economy. You know, issue of all this the COVID-19 issue of crisis in Russia and where Ukraine, right? You know, Russia is one of the major suppliers of what do you call it? Is it gas? Wheat and gas, right? So the crisis there has affected the global supply of these things. So it led to the increase in prices of this. And indirectly, it affects us. They will also have the issue of climate change impacts. Climate change impacts, thank God that the issue has been raised in the sessions by the civil society organizations and even the Youth Council of Nigeria. They've raised this issue, which is also very, very important and key because of the attendant risk that is in it. The demographic shifts, the size of the nature of the population. What is the increase in number of children? What is the increase in the number of old age? So that necessary provisions can be made for them. You know, so what is the population structure in Kaduna? Our children, the children number, is the number of children increasing? The number of old age increasing? All these things we need to take into cognizance. And that is why the representative of the Kaduna State population, something, Abi? Bureau of Statistics, right? So we'll make provision of all those things to see whether there's an increase in. Then conflict and displacements. Kaduna State is one of the states that is bedeviled by the issue of conflicts, by the issue of insecurity that has affected a lot of people, especially the rural people who are farmers, that are denied from going to their farms, whose crops are eaten in the farm, whose people that were asked to pay money before going to the farm, definitely it affects them. So the policy needs to take care of that. Then these are the area of focus. We need to look at the coverage and targeting. So we need to look at the. You are fully carried along. I hope you are fully carried along. I hope you are not making a political statement. You are not making a political statement. So that's a good one. So it's good to hear that the CSOs are carried along. And you know what the CSOs you do, you need to be checking. I remember one of the things Mr. Goje, one of the things you told us in Jos when we engaged the CSOs from the three northeastern states. It's very, very important that you play a key role when it comes to the M&E of this social protection policy. So it's very, very important, you know. So far, so good. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. So, Madam Becky. So, okay, we go into, right, thematic groups. Now, okay, comment, okay.
Okay, thank you,
Dr. Dankumo.
Dr. Danko.
Yes.
Thank you for this very interesting
It's working.
presentation. One thing that I just want to portray or comment on from your presentation is the emphasis on the participation of the beneficiaries who the participant. Yeah, I know yes, we no longer call the beneficiaries beneficiary. We are saying project participant because whatever they are entitled to benefit from is not like a privilege. It's something that they deserve. So you emphasize on the participation of the end users or inclusiveness in decision making, which is very key and central. Whatever we are doing is for the end users. And for us, again, that is why we even recognize the importance of human centeredness. So I want to just push this back to Super team. Because I know they wonder about that training, the process, and we can see some of the findings from those end users. Yes. See what they are contributing, some of the things that affect them directly that we are not even aware of.
It's not working?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that whenever we participate in things like that, it's for us to what? To actualize it. To put it in practice. Not sure what I'm saying. Here is also something that you are doing that has to do with what? Decision making. This is a policy document that we are going to review. However, I don't think if we have any of the end users here, to be part of this process because the decision making process as well. So I want to encourage us all, always, think of those end users from the one program to be participating in things like this, in advocacy visit, to the stakeholders, so that they can stand and say some of these things because they are not that experienced in those things. Yeah, thank you. And okay, finally, it's also important for us to think of how we will capture some of these things in the policy document, human centeredness, in all the programs that you have, the social protection programs. Yeah.
So thank you for these important comments. I also want us, in addition to what he said, we should put our shoes in those of the what? That of the poor. Because some of us were there. Are we getting it? Some of us are there. We're there. Though, in
The other mic.
kindly talk to them. Though I said that some of us were there before, we're supposed to be in the middle class, but we have gone back to medium now. In Nigeria, we only have two classes, right? The rich and the what? And the poor. So for those of us that were in the middle class, since the poor cannot reach there, the top, we're the closest people to them. What they did was to what? To hold our shirts and draw us so that we'll meet them, since they cannot access them. So we only have two classes. So we should assume They cannot reach them now. So
Once you cannot reach them.
already the weight, the weight at the lower class is heavier. They are pushing us, so there's no way we can pull ourselves up to what to meet them there. So we are already down. So let's assume we are what? We are down when design reviewing the policy. Yes, Saboji.
Yes, just to assure you, doctor, that even if you do a PhD thesis, you won't convince us that you're not part of it. Just to give a perspective from civil society,
Mm.
from the earlier question you asked, I want to confirm to you that in the state there is no policy benefited from civil society participation and influence than this policy. That
Okay.
is from the beginning of the text
Mm.
down to the final approval of the budget. Each stage, we have evidence to show that we participated in the development of the policy. So, and I don't think there's a policy in Kaduna that has benefited from that. So there's some level of ownership
Okay.
in terms of the policy and the level of consultation, because definitely we can't still bring everybody into the
Exactly.
so there's always the level of stakeholders that are brought in to see that they are able to make inputs, assuming that those inputs are reflective of the constituency or communities that they are brought. So that is on one part. So, but on the part of implementation, I think the biggest challenge is yes, an implementation plan was developed, but it was not approved. So it became difficult to really track the level of implementation. So if you look at the budget process,
Mm.
civil society quarterly usually carry out for budget tracking
Okay. Okay.
engagement,
Okay.
where all representatives of the MPAs
Are there
also
present?
present.
Mm.
Look at documents that we've gotten from reports, budget performance reports, and all of that. And at the end of the day, there's an assessment, but that is based on the budget issue. So that is another level.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe government agencies on their own, I think they also meet at their own level.
Mm.
Civil
Mm.
society
Mm.
focus more on budget.
Okay.
Just to say that the policy has outlined 1% of the consolidated revenue of the state should be
Mm.
allocated to
Social protection policy. Okay.
consistently the state has surpassed
Okay. That 1%
in allocation.
in allocation.
Yes.
Then he releases. He release because he release.
From 2021 to 2024,
Mm.
we saw that there was about 709% increase
Okay.
in budget allocation.
To social protection policy.
But when it comes to that is the big
It's
challenge.
challenge.
And it is two in two ways. One, if you look at the budget performance, you see that over 90% of the budget is going to the foreign,
Okay.
which is pension,
Pension. Okay.
pension performance.
Debt servicing.
So
Mm.
that is a big challenge. And most of the MPAs, I think, the biggest challenge is around transparency.
Okay. Okay.
So that's
Okay.
what we have found out. We've also been able to track not just budget, but even interventions that have been able to carry out. But most of them are federal government interventions.
Okay.
So that is what we can feedback. But in terms of policy implementation, it's very difficult, but the implementation plan is what is supposed to have fully operationalized
Mm.
policy.
Mm. Mm.
So
You're
maybe
right.
that's an area we can look at.
Okay.
To ensure that if we are reviewing the policy,
Mm.
can we attach it as one document to the policy document? So that it's no longer two different documents. When you attach it, when it's getting digital, you have one approval of the document rather than you do one and you come and do another one separately. You get the governance attention of whoever the attention to approve it might not. So that's just a suggestion.
Okay. So you want to make a comment?
the issue of having a simple document, because the major problem
Mm.
with implementation and not getting approval was because of certain things that were inside. So I think we have the opportunity now to do proper review
Mm.
to ensure that it's something that can be approved.
Approved.
Because there were certain benefits that we had written there. You know, it came with the costing.
Cost,
So,
yes.
so
Mm.
it had certain
Cost plan
benefits,
implementation.
children, and the amount, the duration.
Mm.
So that was why the government wasn't able to approve.
Okay.
However, for this time around, the plan on the ground is actually to attach that to the document. Both the policy itself, the implementation plan, and the costing, the estimates. We want to attach everything as a single document. So you're approving it, you're approving it.
Chicken. That's a good one. That's a good one. All these contributions are, are adding more flesh to the discussion and the review process. What I used to tell some of these MDAs, whenever I meet them, unfortunately, we don't have most of the MDAs representatives here. During the budget discussion process, what do you call it, Mr. Goje? Budget discussions. During the budget discussions, when you are planning for your budget, budget in other events or whatsoever, that is lobby. You need to lobby. But if you say you just depend on writing memo, you write memo. Oh, no follow up. No. So you need to be following up. You need to be lobbying, if at all you want your MDA to deliver in terms of what the social protection policy, in terms of what is expected of you as an MDA. So it is key. Any comments again? Yes.
Thank you very much for the presentation, which is quite enlightening and productive. Consider what you have presented from the background. What does poverty entails?
Mm.
And the pushing to correlate what poverty what poor and vulnerability.
Mm.
So take for instance that there are determinants whether the population can be a root cause or a blessing to determine whether poor and vulnerability.
Mm.
So to that extent, how can we maybe consider the context of Nigeria and the state peculiar? Then two, from your presentation, focus on centered coverage and targeting, level MIE system, then stakeholders. I also consider stakeholders and the allocation of resources for the budget of
Okay.
Then what is the actual spending also?
Okay. It's a very good point. Thank you for that addition. And in respect to issue of population growth, the population growth in Nigeria is not up to that of China, right? In fact, even in terms of population, and yet the poverty level of Nigeria is higher than that of China, right? Now the issue is that in China the growth in their population was a blessing. Are we getting it? And it was because the environment has been made conducive by the government, such that as the population is growing, they are getting where they are being absorbed. Is that understood? So, but in the case of Nigeria, population is growing, nothing to absorb them. So, in our own case, population growth is a cause. Are we getting it? So the only way that we can get out of this is for the government to be desirous, to be intentional, to have the political will of making provision for this population growth. Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay, so that's good. That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay. Okay.
This one that we had, there are some MKs within the states. They are not even aware that we have a deputy.
So.
And I want to talk to us about advocacy.
Mhm, mhm, mm.
We don't amplify the news about it. People will not know, and people will not come into place. So it is our duty to try to make a case for it. Like even the governor, definitely is going to be one that will approve the policy. But the commissioners, the other heads of agencies, and then the permanent secretaries, directors, all the people involved, how are they going to know about it? We are supposed to make it happen. We are supposed to create awareness about the documents. And thank God we have a civil society organization. They will help amplify it. That even the office will know.
Yes.
Have something like this.
Yes.
Mining have already planned something like this.
Exactly. Exactly. You are right.
The member of committee to be an state executive.
Bye, Ifa. To me, Faru. Battery is like the battery is weak.
Check 1, 2.
So what is happening? So, maybe the battery was weak.
The battery is weak.
You see,
The battery is weak.
this is a valuable contribution. You know, just as I've told you earlier, in Gombe State we have SPP DEX officers in all the MDS. In all the MDS, we have SPP DEX officers that we normally interface with at the end of every quarter. So I think if the responsibility of these DEX officers is to always remind their executives when it comes to budget planning. The responsibility of these DEX officers is to remind the executives the need of what incorporating some of these social protection policy